Hey guys, welcome to Now That's Debatable, featuring Fantastic Facade and Tribolet the Humanist. Uh, Thanks for tuning in. Today we wanted to talk about post hoc rationalization, specifically in the religious people or just the religious circle. So the post hoc rationalization, it seems to increase in proportion to our understanding of the universe because as we learn more, we realize that what's stated in a lot of these holy texts are just wrong. So you have to reinterpret the literal meanings of those things. Kind of like I think it talks about, I forget the exact reference in the Bible, but it talks about the world sitting upon pillars, right?
Yep.
So before we knew that how the world actually, was actually holding up the world, just gravity. Um, that actually there was no need to like just try to reinterpret that. You could just accept that as a literal meaning. But then, as we found out more about the world, it had to reinterpret it as an analogy. However, if you just look at the text, that's just not what it would actually uh, mean. It's not written in any sort of like analogy type of form of writing. And so this happens like throughout Genesis and a lot of scientific statements that's written in the Bible. I often say that. So like I have like family members who are like flat earthers and believe in 7 day creation and all that type of stuff. And honestly, I mean, despite that being less scientifically reasonable, it's a much more honest position rather than trying to reinterpret Genesis to fit, modern scientific understandings. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I am in a bunch of Facebook groups dedicated to debate and to arguments for and against religions and against atheism and pro creation, pro flat earth, all that fun stuff. And I was just scrolling through and I kind of came across a bunch of these examples, and a lot of times, and I'm seeing it more frequently, maybe because I've been paying attention to it more. But I've been seeing it more frequently in debates of like Christians versus Muslims. And in the debate, you'll see like a Muslim point out something in the Bible and say, "Oh, well, that's wrong, and the Quran is correct, and it says this." And if you read either of the text, you'd be like, "Oh, like it doesn't say this in either at all." And
Mhm.
it's really, really interesting because I'm just like, that's not like it's not what the text is saying, and because there's this conflict in the religions themselves, they're using each other's text to point out how it could be conceived or read incorrectly. And I'm just like, well, why don't you just take a step back and kind of look at what you're doing?
Yeah,
Because
right.
I mean, this is classic post-hoc rationalization where we have something that is stated very clearly and very poignantly, or maybe not stated that clearly or poignantly, and you can kind of read into it what you will, and then something happens, like an event happens, or science comes forward and they can show demonstrable proof that something is happened or will happen again. Things like gravity and evolution, these things that like we hold to, they're undoubted claims that like they're just not going to change. There may be
Hmm.
holes in the information. It may not apply to everything all at once, but
Yeah,
there's
but they're
things that like they're just not going
they're,
to change, right?
they're observable facts,
Yeah, I
right?
mean,
So
so then we take things like holy texts like the Bible or the Quran, and we go find these verses that are really obscure that mention similar words, usually not the same words that we use in these scientific texts or journals, and apply it. We just say, oh, yeah, like Yeah, we knew that forever. Like that's been that way the whole time. The Bible said that 4,000 years ago.
Yeah, how about when it says like when God stretched out the heavens? A lot of times Christians interpret that as that's cosmic inflation. That's the Big
Yeah,
Bang. Oh, see, and like no, that's
yeah.
not what's being said. Yep.
So it's been aggravating me, and I've been wanting to kind of discuss it and just kind of bring it to the table because the whole thing is our channel hasn't lost its root on what we're willing to debate or who we're willing to debate. These shorts are just easier to digest and we focus on this one topic. But it's been bugging me for a while that I keep seeing these sad and pathetic arguments to kind of rise up against science. And it's either you can't have your cake and eat it too. So science is the one that's defending this one little thing that you've post hoc rationalized, but then you're against the science on how old the earth is or how other things work, or you're
Hmm.
an anti-vaxxer. I just don't quite understand where we're drawing the line. Like it seems that we're picking and choosing what science to accept at this point, and then literally just reinterpreting our holy books to kind of justify our rationalization.
I know this happens to apologetics a lot. So there's a passage you're familiar with in Ezekiel 26. There's a prophecy that just totally failed. It says that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, he's supposed to conquer this city and completely destroy all the towers and the walls and everything. It's not be good for anything other than drying fishing nets. That's what the passage says. And so we know through history that Nebuchadnezzar wasn't actually able to do that. He laid a 10-year siege on the city, was never actually able to destroy it. And so apologists try to explain this by saying that it wasn't for Nebuchadnezzar, even though the passage explicitly mentions him by name. It says Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. It says his name in the passage, but they try to reinterpret it to mean Alexander the Great, a Greek, 400 years later does it. But then you look through history, Alexander the Great didn't actually do it either. And so, and another way to interpret it was, well, it's
It'd
not
be
going to be
Jesus'
Alex.
second coming.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right. It's Jesus' second coming. Yeah. And I'm like, there's the like reading his text, there's no way you would have thought this. So first was King of Babylon, then it was Alexander the Great. Now you're saying, oh, it's actually going to be a half god, half man coming back on a flying horse who vomits a sword and sets everything ablaze. And that's what Ezekiel 26 is referencing.
yeah,
Oh,
that
come on.
specifically was what was mentioned in Ezekiel 26 when they mentioned Nebuchadnezzar by name.
Right, right. So when it says Nebuchadnezzar, what it meant was not Nebuchadnezzar. Like this is a joke. You know, one example I wanted to point out. This was on a show. This was an episode we did. It was fairly recent, back in April. I don't know if you ever remember the episode we had. We had those two reformed apologists. We had K Dub and other gentleman's name, Joseph
Joseph Jackson.
Jackson. Yeah. And so you were questioning him, you were asking him if he believes that the Bible is inerrant. And so um just for you who don't know, inerrancy means that the Bible is correct in all of its statements, whether factual or whether any sort of factual statement it makes is correct, whether it deals with science, whether it deals with history, wisdom, anything. It is precise, it is correct. And so this is a much stronger way to view the Bible than infallibility, which means that it could get a statement wrong. However, the what's being taught is still a good lesson. Like for instance, um, Jesus said the mustard seed is the smallest of all seeds, right? And so it's not the smallest of all seeds, but that wouldn't be a problem for infallibility, because infallibility would say that somebody who's just hold the Bible just as infallible, they would say, even though it's not the smallest of seeds, the point that he was making was that with just a little bit of faith, you can do great things. And so that's true. And so that's it. So, but K Dub and Joseph Jackson, they're both in it. They believe that the Bible is inerrant. So when Jesus said it's as mustard seed is the smallest of all seeds, and it's not, you have to explain that. And what was equally hilarious is that we didn't even bring this up. Remember, I think you were asking about inerrancy, and then Joseph Jackson, like he brought up the mustard seed, and I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
let's
I,
go
I
with
wasn't
that.
gonna go there. I was gonna go somewhere else, which I thought was a far better point. But then he brought it up.
Yeah, he
I was gonna
brought
go
up.
to Ezekiel 26 and 29. By the way, if you guys are watching,
Oh, oh wow,
yeah, come at me on that, and we'll talk.
yeah, that
Because that's
that
where I
would
was
have
gonna
been a
go.
good one. I wish we had, but yeah, we got on that, and so Jesus said, like he says plainly, it is the smallest of mustard seed, it's the smallest of all seeds. And so here's your post hoc rationalization. He reinterprets it to mean that it's just the smallest seed that they used and was familiar with. Right? Now, it's so if Jesus says it's the smallest of all seeds, that's what it means. It's the smallest of all seeds that to exist. But somehow he reinterprets this as meaning it's just the smallest seed in their neighborhood. It's the
Yeah,
one that they're familiar with. Which,
it's the smallest seed Jesus knew about.
yeah, right. So like, even if it's not what it says, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, I just got that small seed Jesus knows about, right? Because he's
Yeah,
God, right? Should
yeah.
have known. But yeah. So, but anyway, so he reinterprets this. He reinterprets it as, um, yeah, it's just the smallest seed that they were familiar with, and we pointed out that even if you grant this exegetical train wreck of an interpretation, that the problem is still there because they use seeds that were smaller, and we pointed out poppy seeds, and I mean, the look on just the look on her face just completely changed, and was disappointing was is that I could almost guarantee you that even after that discussion, even after we completely demonstrated that this was just categorically false, I can almost guarantee you that they still hold that the Bible is inerrant.
I bet my next paycheck on it.
Yeah, and so like I mean, w- I don't know what your tactic is. Like when once I see that somebody is engaging in this type of post hoc rationalization, to for me, the debate is no longer about them. It's about the audience
Yeah,
because this person is no longer willing to listen to reason. His mind is made up, and so now he's just kind of just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks.
yeah.
And so at this point, I was like, okay, so this is just for the people watching, so they can just see how just unreasonable this is. I mean, I wish we had gotten on Ezekiel 26 though, man. That would have been very
Uh,
interesting.
yeah. One thing before I wrap this up, because we're trying to keep it under 15 minutes, but I can do it in about 30 seconds, so we're almost at the 14-minute mark, so we'll still have closing. Is whether you're reading the Torah or the Quran or the Bible, any of the holy texts there are, there's Hindu holy text and all that fun stuff as well. That if you're reading them and you have prophecy, this is the easiest way to determine whether you're post hoc rationalizing or not. If you have prophecy, go and read it as it's stated. And if you interpret it to mean anything other than what's stated, or if it's so open for interpretation that it could mean anything, like the works of Confucius, where we talk about it being predictions of like the Twin Towers falling in 2001. If you're doing that, that is a classic and prime example of post hoc rationalization. Because Confucius didn't know anything about airplanes or the fact that there were terrorists or the fact that the Twin Towers were going to fall, and there's no way, logically, anyone could have predicted it. When you go and read these texts and you're reading deep into them and you're trying to mold them and morph them to mean something they're not, maybe realize that that's not what it's intended to do. Like, you can still hold on to your beliefs, you can still hold on to your opinions, and you can still think it's a prophecy, but if you're taking and twisting and turning and manipulating every little aspect of it to try to come up with something to make it fit, to impress people and say it's a prophecy come true. I mean,
Yeah, you're probably engaging in
great.
post
I
hoc
mean, every
rationalization.
word, every written is going to be that way because I
Right.
can turn anything into it. And congratulations, post hoc rationalization in a nutshell. You lose.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, there's hardly any proposition that couldn't be bent and twisted and reinterpreted to make true. So,
yeah. So don't do that. And if you're doing it currently, stop doing it. And genuinely try to reflect on that and learn from it and grow from it. Because it's frustrating when you're trying to have an intellectually honest conversation or debate with people and they're post hoc rationalizing things like prophecy or miracles or scripture written 2,000 years ago and interpret it to mean something that people couldn't clearly know about in the future. And if you think your divine revelation is so good, maybe use terms that they would know we would use at the time that it was written in the future. Anyway, getting off my high horse and soapbox. I hope you guys are liking the new format. You're going to get a lot more content this way, just doing it in these short formats than usual. So I hope you're enjoying it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.